Hello, my name is Jackson Howard, and I'm from Marion High School.
My name is Jordy Raymer, also from Marion High School.
And today we're going to be talking about Larissa's budget fund.
And so here's the scenario. The scenario we got, the scenario you guys got. I'm not going to read all of that. So we'll break it down into these few things. She got promoted to now receive an $85,000. That's her base salary. In her checking account, she has $3,400. Her savings account, she has $53,000. She has $9,500 in student loan debt. And she eventually wants to buy a $400,000 house. She eventually wants to marry and have children. And obviously, all of this will need to be done with a budget.
We're going to talk about the process. So first, we're going to need to define the goals, her financial goals and situations. Then we're going to have to derive an average monthly budget plan for her. Then we're going to redefine her savings account. And finally, we're going to be able to talk about her investment plan and give her really just a place to retire so she can be ahead of everyone else.
And so here's our budget that we broke down and derived from the scenario. And so we'll start with the gross pay. The average monthly gross pay was around $7,083.33. And so subtract that from taxes, and that'll now bring us to around $5,284.44. Then we go to our expenses. She likes to travel a lot. She likes to eat a lot of food. She's also got some bills to pay. And so her average monthly expenses will then lead to $4,614.50. And so once we subtract those two numbers that are in bold, we will get to what we like to call the average monthly extra, which is what she'll set aside that, we get after subtracting those. And so that'll be around $669.93. And so we'll take $500 away from that, and we'll talk about that later, but we'll set that aside for investments, and then the savings will be what's left over.
So we're really going to just hammer down she needs to invest, because this is really what's going to set her ahead and retire at the end. So we really want her to do an aggressive growth 401k. This is where 80% of the investment goes into stocks. So she's going to need to know how to not pull all of her investments out once the stock market goes down, because even if her investments are looking really bad because the stock markets are down, this doesn't mean that her investments will be bad all the time, because the stock market always goes up, because history's shown us that it always goes up, and it's going to really just help her in the long term. This also outperforms inflation, which is a big deal. We also really want her to put most of her money into CDs, or certificate of deposits. This is guaranteed results. This is where you put your money in for a certain amount of time and a certain interest rate. This will discourage her from spending money, because she'll have money set aside into her investments and not as much money in her savings account. So she can't just go crazy and spend all the money in her savings account because it's in her investment account. She also has a bunch of different investments that she's already had. What we're going to have her do is have $500 each month set aside to invest in her money. We're going to split this between her CDs and her aggressive growth 401k. Most of it is going to go towards the CD because it is safer and it's really going to help her in the long term. She also has some Social Security that she's had, and she's had many employers that have built her up a 401k for her, and she has a current Kentucky employer that's making her money, and all of these are for her investment and retirement.
So now we'll talk about some debt management strategies. She still has some student loan debt, so we'll try to pay that off with what we like to call the snowball method. And so the snowball method, you create lists of your debts, and so you go from smallest to largest. You make minimum payments on the large debts, and so you can pay off the small debts faster. Another method we would say to use is the avalanche method. This one, you also list your debts, but this time you go largest to smallest based off of interest rate. And so you'll pay minimum payments on the small interest rates, but then you'll make higher payments on the higher interest rates to try to, really maximize the amount of money that you will spend on these interest rates. And so ultimately, there are some financial companies that will help you with paying off debt, but it is good to apply caution, because A, if you don't have a lot of debt, they may not be needed, or B, they could give you faulty advice.
She also wondered about what professional guidance she should use, and we really want her to use people like Dave Ramsey that give you free financial advice, and she can also form her own opinion by watching these people. She can also go to find advisory firms like Vanguard Personal Advisor or Fawcett Wealth or Schwab Intelligent Portfolios. These are all here to help her, but she has to pay for it, and they will help her invest her money. But the reason she shouldn't use advisory firms are because she doesn't have kids or a husband. This means she doesn't have lots of investment accounts, so it's not too hard to deal with, and she can get all that she needs from Dave Ramsey and other free financial advice, and she can make enough out of what is given to her for free. Our recommendation is to...
So she should follow the budget. If she doesn't follow the budget, this will all break down and be for nothing. We're going to remove $45,000 from her savings account to initially invest. We're going to apply the snowball debt method because she doesn't have a lot of debt, so this will get rid of it fast. And then we say she should take free advice from financial advisors like Dave Ramsey.
Here's how we're excited. Thanks for listening.